Hello and welcome to Game Over Vancouver. I am your host today. I'm Sam and I am joined by Gabby. She's at Hockey Nuisance on Twitter and she is one half of one of my favorite hockey organizations, To Hockey with Love, which works with the PWHL to kind of change the landscape of media and offer opportunities to writers from marginalized communities. How are you doing today, Gabby?
I am good. Thank you for having me on.
Gabby is in Chicago, which is why she's joining us today. The Canucks, in their second of a back-to-back early game weekend, beat the Chicago Blackhawks 4-3 after losing in a shootout, not a shutout, to the Minnesota Wild yesterday. What did you think of that game, Gabby?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a good comeback win for the Canucks after yesterday. The first period was definitely like people were stressing out a little bit about how it was looking, but they came back really strong in the second period and in the third. It was fun to watch. It's been a while since I've seen some fun hockey. So obviously, Chicago lost, but what were we expecting really?
It's kind of par for the course for you guys lately. So the Canucks' first period was nothing to write home about. I think it was kind of a continuation of their play against Minnesota yesterday, maybe other than the second period. What did you think about that first period?
To be fair, I didn't watch much of it because I was fighting for my life trying to put it on my computer. Um, but I mean, it was fine. I really like Nick Foligno, and I was hoping to see a little bit more. I was hoping for a hat trick. I was like, I don't care if they lose. I would like to see him score something. But I did watch most of the second and all of the third. So the second was fun.
The second was when the Canucks kind of turned it back on and realized they were
Yeah,
playing the Blackhawks.
I hadn't realized how much like I haven't watched a lot of hockey this season, and I like Bezzer's like renaissance
Yeah.
is really great. So I'm like they're just like such a fun team to watch right now.
What is speaking of Besser, Besser scores his 23rd goal of the season. It is December the 17th. I said at the beginning of the season he'd for sure score 30 goals, which he's 7 goals away from. What has been the perception around Besser in Chicago over the last couple of seasons and compared to this season? Like obviously you guys are aware it's a renaissance, but
Yeah, I mean, I think he had a couple of rough seasons, and I think there were things that were like mostly out of his control. I feel like we weren't as harsh on him as I think a lot of Canucks fans were. I think mostly I just want to see the best for him at all times. He's a nice Minnesota boy. Like
yeah.
let him be happy. Like it's glad I'm happy to see him just kind of come back and having the season that he deserves. I'm
Besser,
also,
no, go ahead.
no, it's also like Quinn Hughes. I don't even know how to explain it. Like where did that come from?
I think that's kind of been there all along. I'm going to come back to Quinn Hughes. If you watch the game this morning and you're with us, Besser scored the go-ahead goal, not the game-winning goal, but ultimately, but at the time was the go-ahead goal 3-2. And it was kind of a quintessential Brock Besser wrist shot that kind of just overpowered Peter Mrazek, who I actually thought had a pretty good game today.
Yeah, he does. I mean, I feel like Mrazek's biggest issue is that the Chicago doesn't have like a decor basically right now. They're playing with a super super young, super inexperienced team, and I think he's doing his best. I am really impressed that they aren't getting like blown out a lot more than what I was expecting. Like I was expecting a lot more like 7-1, 6-1s, and they've been a little bit closer. So
Yeah. If you're just joining us, Canucks win 4-3 over the Chicago Blackhawks. I'm with Gabby at Hockey Nuisance on Twitter. Make sure you follow at SDPN Sports. Subscribe to the YouTube. Hit like on the stream. And thanks for joining us at 3 o'clock Pacific on a Sunday. Very, very odd set of times for this back-to-back for the Canucks. Quinn Hughes, you mentioned earlier that you've been surprised, and where is that all coming from? I think a lot of Canucks fans would argue that that's been their the whole time, and that he's been deeply disrespected by the rest of the league. Obviously, not the numbers have not always been there, but he's been. I don't think he's ever had a proper D partner.
Okay.
And I think there's something about having been named captain that's kind of, I don't know. He's rising to the challenge rather than buckling under the pressure. But tell me a bit more about, like, what did you think of Hughes?
I mean, I think he's gonna hit 40 points soon, isn't he? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And we're what? We're not even. Are we halfway through the season? No, we're not, right?
We got to be close.
Yeah, we definitely. But this has not been my most closely watched season, so I feel like I'm playing catch up as well. I don't know. He's just such an interesting person overall. I've always really liked him. I really like the Hughes family as a whole. I
say hi.
I think you guys might be able to hear Sloan. You have an escaped baby.
No, I'm really happy like that this is how his first season as captain is looking like, is shaping out, regardless of where they end up.
It's kind of incredible. I think if you had told me at the start of the season that the Canucks would have 21 wins at this point in the season, I would have thought that was crazy.
Yeah. What do you think it is? Like, what do you think do you think that like all the pieces just like came to fit? Do you think there's been like some philosophical change in the way that they're doing things?
I think that there's been I think the lineup has gotten incrementally better. All the little moves that Alvin has made over the last couple of years, rather than kind of waiting for bigger, splashier things that are supposed to be big changes, he's just done a lot of smaller moves that have started to come together. I think this is probably the first season where I would think that they have a proper NHL blue line. It's not like top of the league, but it's not a disaster, which is what I generally thought their blue line was the last couple of years. Yeah. I think this is the first time where, I'm okay with who's in their 6 and 7 spots. Like, they actually have a decent top 4. It's serviceable. I don't feel like anyone doesn't belong here and is just here because they have to be. And I think the other piece of it is I do think Rick Tocchet has done an excellent job coaching this team. I think it's the first time where, ice time and decision making and lineups lines up with players' performances. There seems to be way more accountability. There seems to be way more structure. And I think that's made a huge difference.
Are Canucks fans really sold on Tocchet? Like, or are they still?
I mean, I think it's hard not to be at this point, right? Like, they are doing. This is like the best record they've had, and I don't even know the last time they played this well.
Yeah, I don't know either. The Canucks are I've always liked the roster world, like the current roster they had. But I mean, I think it's stressful to watch them because the fans have. So sorry, y'all have no chill.
Oh, absolutely no chill.
So it's always been like everything is always a little panicky. So I'm now paying more attention, to be honest, because sometimes it's just easier. Like, whatever, y'all y'all do your own thing.
It's better when they're winning.
Yeah. I'm excited about the Blackhawks, honestly. I'm not, obviously I'm not the biggest fan of the team, but I really do like I really do like Bedard. He's such a funny little guy. Is the only way I can explain it.
Okay, I want to get back into Bedard. Let's finish off. To answer your earlier question, Hughes is at 39 points in 32 games.
Yeah, see?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That is crazy. I'm going to ask the chat, throw it in there. Yeah, I see the chat. Yes, I have a 2-year-old who is making a lot of noise. She doesn't normally do this because normally the shows are at night and she is asleep, but she is not. So I apologize for the background noise. If you're in the chat, I want to know how many goals you think Brock Besser ends up with at the end of the year, and whether that's consistent with your prediction at the start of the year or if you've like doubled your prediction at this point.
Ooh.
So we'll go with that. Gabby, what do you think Brock Besser ends the year with?
Wait, how many does he have right now?
He's at 23 goals right now.
40? 40? Has he had... How many... Let me see it. I need to look at his stats.
I think the... Hang on. I'm pulling that up as well now. He's currently at... Okay, we've got Duck saying 40 plus. Got another for 45 goals. Start of the year expectation was 25. 35 goals from HSM Fangirl. Originally had no expectations. Ooh, 44 and a quarter. Clay says 42 goals and he predicted 3. You predicted 3 before the start of the year, or you predicted 30 before the start of the year? 3 seems very low, Clay.
That's some hater energy.
Clay is like the most positive host on the show, so 3 seems 3 seems unlikely. I predicted 30 at the start of the season. I think 45. I think he's got at least. I don't think he hits
50 because it's going to be a grind after this. So
I don't know, man. He could keep scoring these empty net goals. It's a great way to do it. I mean, they've played 32 games and he has 23 goals. He's got 50 games left.
He'll get close to it.
I think, yeah. You know what? I'm gonna say he hits 45 goals.
Yeah, that's good.
I think so. His career high is 30. Sorry, his career high is 29. So he's actually never hit 30 before.
Okay, so yeah, I think 40, 45 is a good prediction. Yeah.
All right. Let's switch it to talking about the Blackhawks a bit. I have not paid attention to the Blackhawks at all, other than to know that they are not good. I was extremely bitter that they landed Connor Bedard because I really wanted Connor Bedard. But tell me a bit about the Blackhawks this season. Like, what do you think about Bedard so far? Like, how do you think things have been going?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone really expected them to be winning like crazy, aside from like the most delusional Blackhawks fans. But I don't think anyone expected them to be like this. A lot of it is out of their control, right? They've had a whole lot of injuries. They basically had their entire D out today. You know, Jones is out, Christensen's out. Who else is out? I think Murphy is out as well. Oh no, he came back in the second, but it's just been a rough go for them. I think they lost everything that happened with like Perry and stuff. I think they also lost some momentum. They also lost Taylor Hall. So it's just been like really bad injury luck. I do think they did a really great job in having Nick Foligno come in and be like their de facto captain. And I think that Richardson is doing a good job of keeping them animated. They're losing. They're losing a lot, but they don't seem to be like defeated, right? They're going out, they're trying as best they can.
I think for at least the first period, maybe even part of the second, they for sure outworked the Canucks.
Yeah. Oh, and definitely in the last, they were really hustling in that last couple minutes of the third. I feel like Connor Bedard is like playing a little too much. You can't feel he's 18. I was like, that's a child. Let him rest. But I mean, he seems to be like to want to be there. So I think it's going to be exciting times. They have definitely a lot of pieces to add. I always just like seeing these like emerging teams. Like, they're pulling a lot of people up from Rockford and seeing what fits best. And I always like that. I like seeing young players develop. I think that they build up a really good prospect line back up because Stan Bowman the prospect pool was really, really bad for a while there, and I think they've done a really good job of rebuilding that back up. But yeah, I see them probably struggling a year or two more as everyone kind of gets their feet under them. I hope Foligno stays on for a little bit longer, whereas as a player or not. Oh, he's quite old, right? He's like late 30s.
He's got to be.
Yeah.
I'm going to look it up. But yeah, the Hawks are currently last in the Central,
Yeah.
9-20-1.
I think they're second to last in the league, right? Yeah, I think that only the Sharks are doing worse than
Yeah,
them.
I think that's right. No, the
So,
Ducks. Uh,
oh, the Ducks. What is up with the
no,
Ducks?
I think they're last now. The Sharks have 21 points. The Ducks have 20 points.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I was expecting them bottom 10. I wasn't expecting them to be like dead last. But I mean, they have a lot of cap space for next year. So we'll see
It's
them
kind of
add.
it seems like kind of the ideal situation of being last, where you have basically kind of the incoming best player in the league. He's been entertaining to watch. I mean, they've put together a lineup that, like we just talked about, works hard, and it's kind of, if you're gonna lose, that's the way to lose.
For sure. The vibes are right. I think the Blackhawks spend a lot of time with really horrific vibes, and I know it was really hard for a lot of like the older fans to get rid of like those last pieces with Taves and Kane, but it was the right decision. They needed a clean house, and that's what they really got. Like I started watching the first couple of games of the season, I was like, who are these people? Like I didn't recognize anybody. Um, but yeah, and yeah, I think just they have to have time and patience. And hopefully the ticket prices go down because we're getting absurdly expensive. So
For how they're playing.
yeah.
Um, obviously one of the bigger storylines for the Hawks this year was the Corey Perry situation. I know you've obviously, I would consider you an expert on kind of Blackhawks management and culture and front office issues. What did you think of how they handled this compared to previous situations? Do you think there's been any growth or improvement at all, or more of the same?
I mean, definitely. I think it could have been really easy to just pretend like it hadn't happened, and they chose not to do that. I do think they have put in place some mechanisms to protect their staff. It kind of sucks. My biggest issue with the Blackhawks is I think the Chicago fan base is very, very loyal. Like even at their worst, it took quite a few games for them before like they stopped selling out, which was like last season. Um, so I think they have a different perception of like what the rest of the league and what the rest of the fans of the sport perceive them as, and so I feel like they don't do enough work in terms of like how we handle this. What happened to Bedard? I mean, it is not funny. I think like the jokes, but a woman was like some really horrific things were said about a young kid's mom and her mom herself, like having to see that comment online. So I think those are the things that they have to like prepare for, that someone will always try to find something to say about them. And I think they need to be a little bit more proactive in that sense. But in terms of like protecting their staff, um, I think they did a really good job in that sense. And you can see very, very different culture.
Than before. Yeah, I know a lot of people were giving them grief, and saying, there needs to be transparency and like all this disclosure. And I think the one thing people missed about that is the crucial difference is last time you didn't hear about it. There were no immediate consequences, whereas
Oh,
this time, people might want to know exactly what happened. It's pretty standard HR to not disclose any of that. The real issue was that there was a cover up last time, and they really, I think, took the steps they needed to this time to get everything
yeah.
disclosed and handled.
Yeah, I think like I said, transparency isn't like you knowing all the details, is you knowing that something is happening, and that they're doing something about it. Um, and it's a good thing that they're not telling you everything that's happening. This is, like I mentioned, there's like a big power imbalance between athletes and front office staff if they were involved, right? And the other players not knowing what's happening, that's good. Like you don't want these things. You don't want a staff member to be targeted for what they may have reported. So I don't. I understand why people want to know, but that was the appropriate course of action. Um, I wouldn't say it sucks, but for Corey Perry, because like, but it's truly a terrible way to wrap up a very, very long career, and you just hope that he's getting the help that he needs.
Yeah. Um, On that note, if you're joining us, the Canucks in their second of back-to-back games beat the Chicago Blackhawks 4-3. They scored 3 unanswered goals to come back. I'm here with Gabby, who is one half of Two Hockey with Love. She's from Chicago. We are talking about the Canucks. We are talking about that game. We are talking about the renaissance of Brock Besser, and now we're talking about Connor Bedard. What do you think of Bedard's performance so far? Jim Drum in the chat says, I think Bedard will single-handedly get Chicago some wins that they otherwise shouldn't get.
Yeah, it gives a little bit of like Connor McDavid energy, where he's just like dragging the entire team forward. I think he puts a lot more pressure on himself than anyone else does. He's done really great for a rookie. I think he's like 28 points or something like that. And yeah, I think he's gonna have a really strong year. I can't think of anyone else who's doing as well as he is. I don't understand why we expect rookies to be like incredible right off the bat. I think Austin Matthews really skewed people's perception on that. I think he's doing fine. He's doing great. He needs a lot more support than what he's getting, and I just hope he stays upbeat and that that they're doing like good game management, load management on him. It's mostly what I worry about. It's a lot of game. Like it's a lot of games for an 18.
And there have for sure been rookies whose careers have been hampered by being brought up too. I don't think he's been brought up too early, but people have been brought up too early, played too much. For me, coming from Vancouver, Gilbert Brule comes to mind.
Yeah, in Chicago, Kirby Dach, and then he injured his wrist, and it took him a long time to bounce back from that.
Yeah.
And he had to, he ended up in Montreal and that's what he was really able to. So I think you take it easy on the kid. It's a lot of pressure on him.
There was a lot of conversation earlier in the year about whether or not he was getting too much media, too much attention. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think. How rude can I be on here?
You can be as rude as you want to be.
Okay, I think people get really creepy about these teenage boys, and I think that like some people like Bedard can meet up to that pressure, but others can't, and I don't think it's fair to them either way. It's just so much. He's 18 years old. He doesn't even have like a fully developed personality yet. Like, chill. It's okay. He's not the only player on the team, and I don't know. I think he handles it pretty well, but I don't think it's fair to him. Yeah, he does get too much media attention. Like, for why? I don't know. He's funny. He's like a weird little Gen Z kid, which I can admire. So I think he's holding up really well. But he's not the only thing. He's not the only interesting thing that's happening in the league right now.
Yeah. We got Avery in the chat. Avery says rookies being rushed. That's the Oilers management alarm.
Yeah, true.
Speaking of the Oilers management alarm, how much concern do you have that Connor Bedard will eventually end up in a Connor McDavid situation where he's just kind of carrying the load and they're doing better but still not really getting anywhere?
I have faith in Kyle Davidson. I think I'm not always that nice to the Blackhawks, not in general, but I think Kyle Davidson has done a good job. I don't think that they leave him in a lurch the way that they have in Edmonton.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've been a fan of what Kyle Davidson's done so far.
Yeah, I was really Rockford. I mean, they have a strong prospect pool and they have a lot of picks, and that came from a lot of trades that made a lot of fans unhappy. But now I think they have like 4 first-round picks in the next couple of years, so go for them.
Yeah. Tony Smolak in the chat says, I've been watching Bedard since he was 14. I keep waiting for him to stumble, but I don't think it's happening. Yeah, I agree with that. I think he's going to cut out.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're joining us and you haven't liked the stream yet, make sure you like the stream, subscribe to SDPN Sports, go follow at SDPN Sports on Twitter. I'm at Samantha CP _ on Twitter. I'm with Gabby, who's at Hockey Nuisance on Twitter, and she's one half of Two Hockey with Love. I want to pivot. I think into something a little bit off topic from the game, I want to hear a bit more about what To Hockey with Love is working on right now, and like how it's been going so far. If for the people in the chat who are unfamiliar, tell us a bit about To Hockey with Love and its partnership with the PHWA.
Yeah, so To Hockey with Love is a started off as a newsletter between me and my friend Perry. We write about like social and cultural issues in the sport. And Perry is from a journalist background, and I have worked in like the nonprofit sector for a really long time. And I've always been really interested in like hockey media specifically, and how sports media is fundamentally different from anything else that we see. And there's no diversity in sports media, and it gets a lot worse in hockey specifically. So we had this idea of running a mentorship program. We reached out to the PHWA and Frank Sarali, who gets a lot of flack, I know, but he's been really great. He's been really supportive, along with Arpin Vasu and Ryan Clark, helped us put together this mentorship program. So we pair up a established writer with one of our mentees, and they write together, or together they put 2 articles out on the Daily Face Off, and now with we have a new partner with the Score, and they get paid for it, and they learn a lot from their mentees, and yeah, it's great. We're in our 2nd year. We just published our first round of articles, and you guys will be reading the 2nd round in a couple of weeks.
That's awesome. If you're joining, make sure to keep an eye out. It's a great opportunity, and it's been really cool to see the PHWA and Frank get involved.
Yeah, I mean, our candidates, like the people who are applying, they all come from all types of backgrounds. We don't have like an age or education, like caps or anything. So people with lots of different life experiences, work experiences, ages from different parts of the world. We had one of our candidates from last year was from Brazil, and now she's doing her master's in Wisconsin in journalism. So
that's super cool.
Yeah, it's been very exciting.
What are you hoping to see To Hockey with Love do next?
I don't know. We did like trial run a podcast, but Perry and I we're not gonna edit that, so that's not gonna happen. We're gonna definitely start writing a lot more. For folks who don't know, Perry and I have it's been a weird year professionally and personally for the both of us, so we haven't written as much this year. But next year we're gonna pick it back up. I want to. It gets really hard to cover like the same type of social stories all the time, like all the bad things. So trying to find more of like the fun angles is what I really want to focus on.
Yeah, that would be great. I know we did a crossover we did a roundtable with some writers of color, and I think one of the things we touched on was marginalized writers are always asked to talk about the serious issues because they're the right voices for it. But sometimes we just want to talk about hockey and like cover hockey and not have to deal with the serious things. So I'm happy to hear that, because you guys have some of the most unique voices in the league, and I miss my newsletters.
Yeah, we'll be back hopefully. We do have like an end of the year stuff. We have a couple of things planned, so we'll have that out in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, I mean, it did get. I think we were also burnt out. We spent a lot of time writing about Blackhawks, scandal, and then you had Hockey Canada, and it's like, how many different ways can you say that there are all these issues in hockey? And I think they're still important to talk about, but also just taking a step back and realize, like, what are we providing to the conversation? Is it responsible? Is it offering anything new? And oftentimes it wasn't. So
I don't think enough people ask themselves those questions.
Girl. I think I read a lot of articles, especially if I don't like the author.
Yeah.
So
oh yeah,
I like to keep track, and someone's like, no, it's not supposed to be like this, but it is what it is.
And that's the goal of the program. And hopefully, I mean, I think from the other side, it's not just the PHWA providing mentorship. I do think that a lot of the writers you've named have benefited from working with you and Perry, and I've seen changes in the way they discuss issues for the better. And so I think you guys are doing some really important work. Somebody in the chat says, sounds like a great program. It definitely is. So I encourage everybody to pay attention to Hockey with Love and all the great things that they're doing. We have been going for about 30 minutes. I'm going to turn it over to the chat. If you're joining us, I'm here with Gabby. She's at Hockey Nuisance on Twitter. I'm at Samantha CP _ on Twitter. Make sure you follow at SDPN Sports, like the stream, subscribe. We're going to move into our presser where we take questions from the chat. Actually, before that, Wallach has another great comment. He says, allowing inroads to not have people who are diverse being railroaded into only focusing on diverse topics and giving breakouts for other content is great.
Yeah, so actually, just to touch on that a little bit, one of the stories that we, like, the structure is, like, one of the stories has to be game-related, and then one of them has to be, like, a cultural aspect, and we ask that they, like, run the topics by us so that we don't have, you know, everyone writing about, like, the same, you know, 3 social issues in hockey, and that's really giving us, like, a really interesting scope of stories, because they really have to think outside the box. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Can't wait to see the next round. Duck says, what program? It's To Hockey with Love, and they do a program with the PHWA to mentor writers from marginalized or underserved communities. Okay, going to move into the presser. This wasn't really a question, but someone said in the chat earlier, I think it was HSM Fangirl, the Blackhawks need to retire Chelsea Dagger. And I wanted to talk about that because I feel like that song, I mean, like, I'm biased. I still remember the Sportsnet video where Kevin BX and all the Canucks were talking about how that was, like, the song they hated the most in the entire world. But it has been a very, very long run for Chelsea Dagger. Is it time to retire it?
I think that the Blackhawks need to retire their entire branding. I will argue it's not just the Chelsea Dagger. I really thought that bringing Connor Bedard would be a great way to transition them into some new ideas, but I guess not. I will argue that they have some of the worst stadium music that I've heard. I hate every single song they play, so that's how I also feel about Chelsea Dagger. I really like the Sabres giving everyone their own own song. So.
The Canucks actually did that a couple of seasons ago, and I loved it. It's like a great way to get a little bit of insight into the players.
Yeah, and personality. We want to see more personality. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Chelsea Dagger is definitely like from a bygone era, so let it rest. It's a good song too. I don't want to associate it with the Blackhawks all the time.
That's a good point. It's just some fangirl says, if it was down to Luke Hughes and Bedard for the Calder, who would have your vote? That is a tough one.
I don't know. Ask me again in, like, after the All-Star break. But right now I'd say Bedard.
Yeah, you know what the problem is I have not been following the Devils closely enough to make a call. I would say from what I've been seeing, my vote is for Bedard, but I also think I have a bias for forwards, and
yeah, for sure.
All right, next question. Wallach says, I think this is about the Canucks. Are the slow starts becoming a concern, or is it enough that they're really pushing back in the last 40 in the game? I'm worried for goalie fatigue in the future, but our goalies have been great. Wait, is that a... Wallach, I need you to clarify if that's a Canucks question or a Blackhawks question. I'm gonna start with Canucks questions because I think they had the slow start today.
Yeah.
I mean, I think in the past I would have been really concerned about Canucks slow starts, but they used to also just, if they had a slow start, collapse, and they seem to be dominating the second and third periods this season. I think they're 18-0 when they're leading in the second. So Canucks, it's a question for the Canucks. Perfect. I interpreted it correctly. Yeah, I think the Canucks are now 18-0 when they finish the second leading. And it seems to not be a problem. I think I would be a lot more concerned if they didn't have the resilience that they've shown this season. I think last season, like I said earlier, anytime they collapsed in the first, you could write off that game. Whereas now they seem to actually believe that they can come back, and they often do. This is maybe actually one of the first seasons I have not been worried about goalie fatigue. This is in previous seasons, I have said that the Canucks have overplayed Markstrom and then they overplayed Demko. I think it's led to injury issues later in the season. I think it's led to poor performance in the postseason, like the one time that they made it. And I am a big fan of not overplaying your starter, especially if you're going to go into the playoffs, because I think just the chances of injury and wear and tear on your goalie are so difficult. And I would say this is the first year with Casey DeSmith in net that I haven't been worried that the Canucks are going to have goalie fatigue. I think DeSmith has proven to be very capable. I think the team has a lot of faith in him. And he's been the most reliable backup they've had in a while. And so it might actually be one of the first seasons where I'm not actually worried about goalie fatigue. Duck says, is Gabby a Blackhawks fan? I think that's a complicated question.
That's a complicated question. I would say it's easy. It's a lot easier to see like Blackhawks coverage, and I'm friends with a lot of the folks who cover the Blackhawks. But, wasn't for I was when I first started watching it, and then I wasn't for a really long time, and now I'm kind of like buying back into the into the hype. They got me too, but like Chicago sports are at a really dire point in time right now. So, what else is there? Like the Bulls are equally as frustrating. So I have been watching a lot more Blackhawks than I usually do.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
Any other questions in the chat? I don't see any more. All right, we are running close to 40 minutes. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Gabby, for being on. Canucks win 4-3 over the Chicago Blackhawks. I'm your host, Sam. Make sure you follow, like, subscribe, and we will see you for the next game.